Little signed by Sagicor Bank is
7 o'clock, and it's time for the morning watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, no death penalty because of a guilty plea. How comes? In the second watch, the continued call for Jamaica to become a republic. Our social media question we ask, are you for or against Jamaica becoming a republic? Please share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's our quote.
Pit in the sky, it fall in your eye. What you do to or wish for others could eventually be the cause of your own downfall. Be careful of how you treat others.
Good morning, Deidre.
Good morning, Dr. Toussaint. How are you today?
I am well and I'm dry. How are you?
Same. I am dry and I am grateful.
Yeah, that quote there now. What can I say?
Be careful.
Be careful.
Be careful.
Tell you what, I'm going to leave it alone.
Right.
The first one to be back after this break.
after the first year, your little one's brain continues to develop rapidly. NAN3 with its advanced formula, specially designed for children from 1 year, keeps their development on track, helps nurture their possibilities with the exclusive combination of optimized protein, HMO, probiotics, and DHA. NAN3, nurturing their possibilities. NAN3 is not a breast milk substitute. It is specially suited to children from 1 year onward.
I'm Tammy.
I'm Wayne.
And we are the Mitchells. Our life is a busy vibe, so Flow Yarden Road is made for our vibe.
Power your everywhere vibe with Yarden Road and get up to 150 megabits per second fiber fast internet at home and fully loaded mobile with unlimited social and YouTube data. Anywhere talking text plus gigs and gigs of any use data. All for a special offer of $4,999 plus GCT. Yarden Road is for the way you live. Flow, Jamaica's network. Visit discoverflow.co. Conditions apply.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling blessed.
Get ready for another Testimony Tuesday inside Alive, 1 to 5 September 27, with yours truly, Sarah and the Chirpy One. 2 o'clock will be time for Prayer Blast. More prayer, more power. 2:15 inside the evidence, we will share another powerhouse testimony you can't afford to miss. Then at 3 p.m., we go behind the pulpit with Pastor Wayne Wilry of the Ocherius District of Seventh-day Adventist Churches. All this and more will come your way inside Alive, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., September 27, on the family station, Love 101.
Give him praise, give him praise.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Toussaint. Now, the public outcry and wish for the death penalty to be handed down on the head of Roshane Barnett in the murder of 5 of his relatives was heard but not granted. And why? Because he pleaded guilty to the murders. But how could that be? And is justice really being served in this case so far? Well, to discuss this and other related issues, we have online Mr. Anthony Williams, attorney at law, and I believe we are hope to be joined by another attorney at law that perhaps is not on as yet, I'm not sure. Mr. Anthony Williams, are you with us?
Yes, good morning, my brother and friend.
Yes, good to have you with us. And I gather that, would you believe it, we also have online my co-host, Mr. Stokely Marshall, attorney at law. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
All right, good to have you both with us this morning. All
Yes,
right,
indeed.
let's just jump into it. Mr. Williams, remind us of how it is that the death penalty became a legal option in this case, and especially when compared with others of a similar nature.
Could you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, I'm just asking you to remind us if you can, of how it is that the death penalty became a legal option in this case, especially when compared with other similar cases.
Well, in this particular case of Roshane Barnett, the allegations are that he murdered 5 persons, all of whom are family members, a mother and her 4 children. And under the law, when this type of murder, occurs, the DPP may opt for the death penalty. Now, the question is what constitutes the application of the death penalty? And there are a number of things that I would like to clear up. So there is, in fact, case law on it, and there is a leading case in Jamaica called the Peter Dugal versus the Queen, as she then was. And this was a case that was decided in 2011. And that case was a situation where the accused man, Mr. Dugal, had murdered 2 persons whilst they were sleeping in their beds in 2005. And there is the Privy Council cases of what we call Pipersburg and the Queen, as well as Tribunal versus the Queen. And what are the legal principles that govern the application of the death penalty? The legal principle is that in order for the death penalty to be applied, the sentencing judge must be satisfied beyond doubt that there is that the murder itself is the worst of the worst. It must be classified as the worst of the worst. It must be seen as the most egregious of the egregious. That is one of the first elements. The second element is that the judge must be satisfied that the accused man, and man, woman as well, must demonstrate that they are not beyond redemption. In other words, there must be no hope for reform. If the evidence is such that it shows that the accused man cannot be redeemed, cannot be reformed, cannot be rehabilitated, there's no hope, then in those circumstances, having regard to the egregiousness of the case, then it will be applied. Now, it is a mandatory requirement in murder cases, for a judge to take into account the personal and the individual circumstances of the convicted person. So the judge must take into account the nature of and the gravity of the offense. They will have to look at the character and the record of the convicted person. And these factors would influence the conduct that would have caused the murder. Now, in order for the death penalty to apply, as I said, these must be present. Now, in the Russian Barnett case, he pleaded guilty. There is also the fact that there is a caution statement, and this caution statement, from my reading and understanding, there is element of remorse. It therefore means that it will be very, very difficult or challenging for the Director of Public Prosecution or the court itself to impose a death penalty, because, as I said, the critical criteria is that you have to show that the accused person is beyond redemption. Now, whether, even if he had not pleaded guilty, the question is, would the death penalty have applied? So, assuming he did not plead guilty, would the death penalty apply? My answer is a resounding no. It would not apply. Why would it not apply? Because even if he went to trial, even if he went to trial, even if he was found guilty, at the end of the day, usually the court would have asked for an antecedent report, a probation report about the character of the accused person. And once the report shows that the accused person either shows some element of remorsefulness, though terrible the offense was, once it shows that he can be reformed, once it shows that he can be redeemed at some point later on in his life, it will be difficult for the death penalty to be put.
All right, thank you. Let me just see if I can get in Mr. Marshall at this point. Your take on that, Mr. Marshall, is that your understanding of the law, and what are your concerns in that regard, if any?
Well, good morning, Dr. Toussaint, Dylan, and of course the listeners, and of course, good morning, Counsel Anthony Williams.
Morning.
That is in fact my understanding of the law. I don't think Mr. Williams has said anything which digresses in any way, shape, or form from the law as it currently stands. My concern, however, in relation to the way we treat with murder matters, and in particular capital murder, is that I think we have over the years moved away from where we once were. And I'm sure Mr. Williams would recall that there was a time when there was no distinction in Jamaica between, can I say, murder simpliciter and capital murder. So now we have capital murder. Not every murder in Jamaica would qualify as capital murder. So if you murder one single individual alone, that would not qualify as capital murder. There is actually a list of what would entail capital murder, such as murdering a police officer while he or she is on duty. There is a list. And the Privy Council over the years has placed what you could consider to be a number of restrictions on how the death penalty can be exercised or when it can be imposed. And alas, here we are today, where the showing of remorse by Mr. Barnett, and of course his pleading guilty, would result in the death penalty not being applicable. I don't mean to necessarily be ecclesiastical or anything like that religious, but it digresses from the word of God. Exodus 21:12 is very clear. It says, whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. It has no qualification as far as I'm aware, although I'm not a theologian. And I do recall when I was in the Faculty of Law some years ago, that you could get the sense that a number of the lecturers, not the institution, not the university itself, but a number of the individual lecturers, they would seem to be nudging us as students away from thinking about the imposition of the death penalty as a punishment and sort of nudging us towards saying, look, it should always be life imprisonment. I think you're upon a break, sir, so I don't want to extend your time too much, but those are my opening thoughts.
All right, thank you. Listeners, we'll be right back.
Get better coverage for yourself and your family as low as $800 a month. The Time by Jane Life Vest from Jane Life Insurance is
$715 and a half.
Want a birthday gift? Oreo is celebrating 110 years and giving you the gift. From August 2, buy any 5 Oreo products, expiration no earlier than August 2, and you could unwrap and have a chance to win over $1 million in cash and prizes. You have 3 ways to enter. Upload receipts to OreoPromotions.com, mail entries to Oreo 110 birthday promotion and send to PO Box 2000 CSO, or drop entries along with contact information in boxes at participating stores. First draw October 14, 2022. Oreo, stay playful. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
Rise with the sun and face the day with some Lasco instant chocolate. Pull a pack, stir it up. Hot or cold, enjoy the chocolatey goodness any time of the day and unleash instant smiles, instant happiness.
Well, if you want buy appliances for your home with the quality high and the price low, get it on a Bashco. Get it on a Bashco. Bashco. See everything what you need. Bashco. Quality service guaranteed at Bashco. Bashco that gives you more. Yeah, Bashco. Get furniture for your house, bed linen, everything for your kitchen, rugs, mugs, and more at Bashco. The store that gives you more. Bashco.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this day, first watch, we are discussing the whole matter of the death penalty. That when there was a guilty plea by Mr. Barnett, the death penalty was no longer on the table, and we're asking how comes. And in so doing, we have online Mr. Anthony Williams, attorney at law, and Mr. Stokely Marshall, attorney at law, and my co-host of the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us, gentlemen. Mr. Williams, I'm going back to your initial thoughts earlier. You mentioned the Dougal case, right? Am I correct, Mr. Right? I'm still not clear. What is it that determines the DPP putting the death penalty on the table? When you look on the Dougal case vis-a-vis this case, I mean, we know it's more people, we know it's more persons, but a death is a death, is it not?
Yes, you see, the law is not an emotional creature, and that's how the courts have decided the case. There are principles of law. In fact, in the Trinidad case, this was a case that emanated from the Caribbean island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, it is important that I tell the listeners what briefly were the facts, and you will understand where we're going. Now, in this case, the appellant, that is Trinidad, the accused man, he threw the deceased person into a ditch, then he proceeded to cut his throat with a cutlass. He then cut off the head of the deceased person and wrapped it in the trousers of the deceased person, which he had removed from the body. He also handled the penis of the deceased, and the Privy Council described it as outrageous. He then slit the belly of the deceased, covered the body, and stuffed the trousers containing the head into a hole under a plant in a nearby banana field. Now, in as much as the 5 family members died at Cocopiece, and we would all agree, let me make it very clear to the listeners, that it was a brutal act. It was bad.
Was the Dougal case also brutal?
It was, but if we are to compare, if we are to compare what happened at Cocopese with what happened in the Trinidad case. Remember, the man's head was decapitated. You know? The head come off. The man's throat was cut. They removed the man's belly. Right? This is not the case here in the Cocopese case. And what is even more interesting, Sir Toussaint, is that the Privy Council in 2003 in the Trinidad case said that that case was not the worst of the worst. Now you tell me, you know, what worst case could you get? So if they could classify the Trinidad case where the man's head was cut off, his throat slit, his penis as well, you know, cut off, right? I mean, what more? And they held in that case that it was not the worst of the worst. It was not the egregious of the egregious. What the court said is that you have to look at the case and compare to others. They said it is not a numerical counting case. It is not a case where because 5 persons died. So the DPP asked for the death penalty, and I believe when she asked for the death penalty, it was in an effort to send a message to the society that, you know, the public and the court do not tolerate this type of behavior. However, there are rules that govern the application of the death penalty. And the rule I said is that the court would have to come to the conclusion, one, that the case was the worst of the worst, the rarest of the rarest, and they would have to demonstrate that the accused was incapable of being reformed.
Let me see if I can get back in Mr. Marshall on that, because Mr. Marshall, based on the scripture that you quoted, and I'm sure there are others in the Old Testament, shouldn't the law then be amended in that regard?
Well, you know, as far as I'm aware, the law used to apply capital punishment regardless of whether it was considered the worst or the worst or the rarest of the rarest. However, I want to go a little bit deeper because I think, by the way, what Mr. Williams just said, Anthony just said, is correct. That is what the law would say. That's what the courts said. However, the Privy Council said, however, I want to look more at the philosophy behind a lot of this. And these are my views. I'm not representing any particular organization, etc. I remember when I was in the Faculty of Law, I was the head of a team that won a moot competition. And the team I was the head of successfully argued that the death penalty should not be applied to a particular case. So I understand both sides of the argument. However, in preparing for the case, I recall distinctly speaking to a well-known Queen's Counsel at the time of blessed memory. He's no longer with us. And in speaking with him, he opened up to me about this matter of the death penalty. And he indicated to me in no uncertain terms that there is a move afoot to remove the death penalty. And so much of the philosophical thinking that goes into how we look at it is based on that. And I am not saying that this is the thinking of the Privy Council, but every time I see these rulings of the Privy Council, I can't help but wonder if they are of a similar judicial philosophy. No wonder some years ago, some of the politicians in our local parliament here said, listen, we need to move away from the Privy Council because we are not able to carry out the death penalty if we continue to appeal to them. And then there was the thinking that we should have the CCJ be our final court. But right now, I'm not even sure if the CCJ would necessarily rule any differently from the Privy Council, because I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the minds of those persons, but we have all come from similar institutions with similar kinds of teaching. I don't know if Mr. Williams has any comment on that.
Before you do that though, Mr. Marshall, what would you recommend in terms of amendments then to the law?
The law, in my opinion, should simply be amended to allow for capital punishment regardless of
If it's
whether it's the
if it's
worst of the worst or the rarest of the rarest,
if it's
and no
one
matter the
person,
circumstances.
if it's one person, capital
Even if
punishment should apply.
even if one person is murdered, sir, yes. It doesn't mean that
Mm,
you can't take things into consideration, such as a social inquiry report. But at the end of the day, this sort of it feels almost like a moving goalpost. What exactly is the rarest of the rarest and the worst of the worst?
mm.
Anyone can define that to be
Right, right.
whatever it can be.
It
So that,
seems subjective in many ways.
in my view, I tend to agree with it, dialogue.
Yeah. Before I go to Mr. Williams, though, I came across a quote, Mr. Marshall, which says, "Why kill people who kill people? To show that killing people is wrong." How do you comment on that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the thinking about why we should not apply capital punishment is that you are supposed to be trying to rehabilitate persons, and I totally understand the rehabilitation concept. I get that, fully get it. The concern I have, however, where I come down on is that if you begin to always not apply capital punishment where someone is murdered, you are sending a wrong message to the country. You are sending the message that if someone is murdered, the life of the murdered person isn't worth that much. So therefore, if the murderer is out of prison within the next 10 years, maybe within 7 years, maybe within 8 years, to use a Jamaican term, I know nothing.
What about the errors, though, in law, that you might be killing an innocent person and you cannot
Glad you brought that
take them
up
back?
too. Because if you're going to go down that rabbit hole, it would mean that you would have to probably overturn the convictions of many people who are languishing in prison right now, who could argue the same thing. I am in here in prison. I didn't commit this murder or whatever the crime is, and yet I am here. You know, in my understanding and in my experience, if the prosecution really finds someone guilty, and well, not the prosecution, I'm sorry, if the court finds someone guilty after the prosecution mounts a successful case, a challenge, then, sir, put it this way: if the person convicted has an issue with it, they can appeal it, and oftentimes appeals do overturn convictions. And I'll tell you this as well, and this is not necessarily something that you will hear on the road, but my understanding from persons who have been incarcerated, many of them, when they are in fact in prison for the offense of murder, they'll admit to their friends and colleagues in prison that they in fact did it.
Yeah, but the one innocent person, I mean, is it worth all of that? That one person, right, has been convicted,
I'm not sure if I
and one
understand the
person has been hanged, for example.
Yes.
Right? Right? The death penalty applied, but the person was really innocent. That person is gone. That's it.
Yes, and I'm saying to you, if it is that there is something to appeal, then appeal it, because the appeal might be successful. Appeal it.
Let me hear Mr. Williams.
Don't do away with capital punishment because you're worried about that.
Hear loud and clear. Mr. Williams, your take on that?
Yes, I agree with Stokely, and I also think that the law should be amended as well to take care of situations like these. When I read the Trimenham case and I see how awful the facts were, and the court did not classify it as the worst of the worst or the rarest of the rarest, my mind was almost blown away. I find it very disturbing, So, I mean, as I said, we can't be emotional, but we have to also take into consideration the high propensity level of crime in the country. And so the country needs to send a message to offenders generally that when serious crimes are committed, right, a stand has to be taken, because we have to send a message to the others as well. So I think there should be some reformation in the law in this regard.
And what specifically would you recommend it state when you deal with the death penalty? Should it be that as long as somebody is killed? Mr. Williams?
No, it is not that somebody is killed, because it is not the act of killing someone, but the manner in which the person was killed. And I'm not referring to the Russian Barnett case, right? I'm referring to the cases generally, all right? Because this case is still before the court, and we don't want to spend much time on Mr. Barnett's case to offer any prejudice to the tribunal. In fact, but we're talking about generally. So when we have egregious cases where the persons who are killed are basically defenseless, absolutely defenseless, and especially in certain hours of the day.
We have to leave it. We have to leave it at that.
In their home,
Yes. Yeah, we have to leave it at that, Mr. Williams and Mr. Marshall. Thank you very much. Interesting discussion. Have a productive day and stay dry.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Talk to Jane Bank today to find out about achieving your own sweet home in 30 days. The time by Jane Bank Mortgage is
7:31.
I'm Tammy.
I'm Wayne.
And we are the Mitchells. Our life is a busy vibe, so Flow Yardan Road is made for our vibe.
Power your everywhere vibe with Yarden Road and get up to 150 megabits per second fiber fast internet at home and fully loaded mobile with unlimited social and YouTube data. Anywhere talking text plus gigs and gigs of any use data. All for a special offer of $4,999 plus GCT. Yarden Road is for the way you live. Flow, Jamaica's network. Visit discoverflow.co. Conditions apply.
Every day I get bigger. Every day I get better. I'm a star in that shimmer. Watch me grow, I'm a winner, yeah. Every step that I take, oh yeah. Feeling great cause I'm learning, yeah. I'm a star in that shimmer. Watch me grow, I'm a winner, yeah. La 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 la. Watch me grow with Alexa Plus.
Help support their mental development at this important stage with a unique combination of nutrients from Lacta Plus. This product is not intended to be a substitute for breast milk.
Planning to sit the January CSEC exams privately? Register with Overseas Examinations Commission before the registration deadline, October 14, 2022. Visit our Kingston office or Montego Bay office to complete your application form or send an email to help@overseasexams.org.jm. Follow our social media pages at Overseas Exams for more details. Remember, if you plan to sit the January CSEC exams privately, the registration deadline is October 14, 2022.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing in the Gleaner. Explainer. Why Monday's rains were worse than Sunday's. And then NHT defends sandbag defenses for Ruthven Towers. In the Observer, FLA returns fire. Authority says criticisms fueled by misinformation, invites Police Federation to discuss issue. And then we see also that leaders in South Central parishes pleased with flood mitigation works. In Loop News, schools to stick to online mode on Tuesday, that's today, as bad weather persists. And then finally in Loop News, Hurricane Ian makes landfall in Cuba en route to Florida. And we continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in the surrounding areas of the Caribbean and also in America. All right, coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. Are you for or against Jamaica becoming a republic? Are you for or against Jamaica becoming a republic? And may I add, feel free to comment on the topic we examine in the first watch as well. You may do so on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
is eternal life? Like forever and ever and ever? And ever and ever? Who can fathom that? What does that even mean? Can you imagine it? How do we even comprehend that kind of life? And what does the Bible mean by eternal life? Does that mean that there is eternal death? Tuesday, September 27, on The Rock, join host Bishop Harold Steve Blair and guest Apostle O'Neill Richards as they discuss the topic eternal life. That's The Rock, Tuesday, September 27 at 10 a.m. right here on the family station of 101.
The book of Acts does much more than just chronicle the early days of the church. It reveals the outpouring of the Holy Spirit and the power he brings to the believer even today. Meet the first leaders and the early martyrs, and witness the struggles and the triumphs of God's people on the move, taking the good news of Jesus Christ to the world. Join Bible teacher Woodrow Kroll as he takes an extended look at the book of Acts in a study entitled Recovering the Power of the First Century Church. Monday, September 5 through to Friday, October 14 on Back to the Bible, weekday afternoons at 12:30, right here on Love 101 FM, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Deidre for a look at our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answer today's question. Are you for or against Jamaica becoming a republic? Deidre?
Phyllis Heard It says, good morning, Jamaica becoming a republic. Would that benefit us in any way? Whatever they decide, we will just have to work with, because so the thing, okay, I can't. I don't get that
the
part.
The thing set.
So the thing sets, okay.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
All right. This one here from Phyllis.
Yes, yes, I am prepared for the change, but why are we rushing it? Is something running away from us? We can't just go one day at a time. That's when we do it. We are positive. Can't we take our time? Could we, please?
Those are the comments so far.
Okay, thank you. We want to thank those who responded earlier. Interesting comments. All right, as we segue into the second watch, now that the Queen has been laid to rest, there are renewed calls to expedite the process of removing the new monarch, King Charles III, as head of state, this time from the Advocates Network. Time come, act now is just some of what they are saying. Well, to discuss this matter, we have joining us Mr. Robert Stevens, spokesperson of Advocates Network, and also from the Advocates Network, Professor Opal Palmer Adisa. Good morning to you both.
Good morning and thanks.
Yes, I trust you are doing okay under the inclement weather.
Yes, I am, and same for you and everyone else.
Yes. And how are you doing, Mr. Stevens? How the weather treating you?
Boy, I was surprised at the amount of rain yesterday, but you know,
yes.
We thought it had passed us already, but boy, it still seems to go around. It have a long, wet tail.
I tell you. All right, let's jump right into it. Let me begin with you, Professor Palmer Adisa. For the record, what really is the Advocates Network? And how does one become a member if one so desires?
Well, we are a non-partisan group, number one, and we are concerned about making sure that Jamaicans are represented and understand and are educated about their rights and the role of various government officials and making sure that there's transparency in whatever interactions and engagement the government undertakes that impact us either directly or indirectly.
And how does one become a member? You just apply like that? Are there any qualifications, prerequisites?
Well, the qualifications or prerequisite is that you are going to be non-partisan, that you are going to be aware and continue to educate yourself about issues that impact Jamaica, that your primary concern is about inclusivity and making sure that the average, and I hate that word, that the average Jamaican is aware of his or her rights and is benefited from the policies and laws of the country. And then you simply apply, yeah.
How does this group differ from the JFJ, Jamaicans for Justice?
Well, Jamaicans for Justice is very specific in terms of looking at judicial and other legal matters. We encompass a much broader range of issues that are not necessarily, it's not so much that we're different. Certainly there's certain tenets that we abide by, but this is just a more broad-based group, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Stevens, for those who do not know or may have forgotten, what constitutes a republic and how different is it from the system of governance that we currently have in Jamaica?
Well, right now we fall under the United Kingdom as one of the constituents, if you will, and a carryover from colonialism. We still respect the Queen as the head of our state. And, in a 1995 Joint Select Committee that reported to country in Jamaica, it said the time has come for Jamaica to have a head of state who is selected by a national process and symbolizes the unity and identity of the Jamaican nation. Now, simply put, what we really want to do is have somebody selected who is going to be our head of state that is not necessarily dependent on the Queen or the King, as the case might be. And from 1990s and even earlier, we have been debating this issue. And what the Advocates Network believes is that the time has come now for us to make some serious decisions, decide where we are going, and restructure our government to suit our needs, and let us not be subservient to any other nation or group.
Yeah. There are those who would argue, Mr. Stevens, I'm sure, that what difference, though, will that make in a substantive way? Wouldn't we still have this person as a figurehead? How would that help me? How would that help me in terms of paying my bills?
The whole idea is to restructure, not just move away from the Queen, but to restructure the whole Constitution to be more serving of good governance of Jamaica by Jamaicans. And let us begin to chart our course in the world that is not going to be dependent on what the Queen decides. We have to begin to recognize that we have to pull away from certain institutions that were established back in the day when colonialism was ruling the world. And those systems were designed to benefit the United Kingdom. What we need to do now is look at systems that are going to benefit Jamaica. And our standing in the world is one of those countries that stands for freedom, human rights, and we're very strong with our advocacy, with people like Bob Marley, worldwide recognized as an advocate of human rights and justice. So we just need to fulfill those things as a country ourselves and stop depending on what the Queen or what England or what UK or whatever wants us to do. These are things that we have reached a stage. We're now 60 years old as a country in terms of independence. and we need to now chart our own course and begin to move forward. Now, having a head of state that is.
Tell you what, Mr. Stevens, we're up on a break. Hold that thought. We'll be right back, all right?
Sure, okay.
When your little one has his first friend, they share hugs, games, and germs as well. He needs to be strong. Protect them with Nestle Clem 1 Plus. Clem 1 Plus contains probiotics, vitamins, and minerals that contribute to maintain a healthy digestive and immune system, helping them to achieve 100% protection plus nutrition. Nestle Clem 1 Plus, your love, their future. Clem 1 Plus is not a breast milk substitute from 1 year onward.
We are family.
Hi, I'm Dr. Colleen Beckles, General Manager of the family station Love 101 FM. I want to encourage you to act from a place of love. In everything that you do, think of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let's reignite the love.
Jamaica's gangs are like packs of rats. They live in filth and try and drag us all in there with them, spreading the disease of violence and corruption everywhere. But like a pack of rats, they can be eliminated with your help. If you have information on gangs, call Crime Stop on 311. This message is brought to you by Crime Stop and their marketing partners, Lime and NCB.
You're invited to listen to Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. We'll give you tips on how to make your money count, how to save, and how to grow your worth. It's all inside Dollars and Cents, brought to you by BPM Financial Limited, taking you higher. That's Dollars and Cents every Thursday at 8:16 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the second watch, we have been discussing the continued call for Jamaica to become a republic. In so doing, we have online Professor Opal Palmer Adisa and Mr. Robert Stevens. Both are spokespersons for the Advocates Network. Before the break, Mr. Stevens, I had interrupted your train of thought. Please continue.
Yeah, I was saying that the head of state is not, we don't need to replicate what we have now, where we just have a governor general that is like a figurehead. There are several issues that were recommended from as far back as I say as 1995, that this head of state would have the discretion, for instance, to appoint sensitive positions such as the Electoral Commission, the Contractor General, Citizens Protection Bureaus, Chief Justice, etc. So it separates certain functions from the Prime Minister and allows for good governance that is going to have checks and balances. In other words, you don't want a total system where the Prime Minister is able to appoint all of the boards and all of the various people in government. That gives you a situation where it can lead to cronyism, corruption, etc. And a lot of that we are seeing displayed in front of us right now. What we need to do is seriously look at all of these areas in terms of reorganizing government, and having governance that is going to be fair and have justice behind it. This situation where we are, basically operating under a foreign guide, if you will, needs to stop. We need to take charge of our own affairs and manage our own affairs.
Yes.
Allow me to interject here.
Yes, Professor, go ahead.
Which I think are very important and fundamental. The first is, this is a moral imperative. We are part of a commonwealth that was designed by the very people who have historically economically, politically exploited us. And to say exploit is really mild because they've done more than exploit us. And as my colleague said, this has been being debated since 1995 and actually even before. So one of the comments from one of your viewers was saying, take our time. We have taken our time. And it is time now for us to say, we have gained independence, but are we independent? And what does that mean? And so really the question what needs to happen simultaneously with this conversation is the education, because most people don't even know what a republic is or what the Commonwealth is or what it does or does not. And quite frankly, if you look at the tenets of the Commonwealth, it doesn't really provide any substantial benefits for Jamaica. And we are, in fact, a lot of money is being taken from the people and from services that are needed to pay a Governor General who is representative of the King, now of the Queen and now the King. And so we want to look at how do we use the resources that we have that benefit the people? Do we need all of these people to, in fact, make things work effectively for us? Do we need a head of state? And if so, what is the role of the head of state? And how does that really work for us? So this is a really crucial moment in history for us to self-examine, but we need everybody to be self-examined. And if people don't have the facts, then they don't have the facts. I heard an interview that was done with a little kid who was 15 who said the Queen did a lot for us, and I wanted to laugh. What has the Queen done for us? So our people need to know.
But I guess, Prof, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, I guess some people are arguing, what has she done in a negative way for us?
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yes. So it's the opportunity for you to state that.
Okay. So if we want to look historically, that our people, your ancestors, your African Jamaican ancestors, worked for the British for over 300 years without any kind of compensation. We didn't get paid. We were beaten. We were raped. We were sodomized. All of the profit from Jamaica, the sugar was sent and the banana was sent to make England what it is today. When slavery was abolished, not because the Queen decided so, because there were so many revolts all throughout, our people were fighting for their life and their freedom, that there was no other choice. The very people who enslaved us and who have been profiting for us was paid and have been paid until 2015 from English taxpayers for loss of slavery. And we have not been paid for loss of labor and loss of life. And the whole fracturing of our children and our family structure was completely destroyed. Yeah. We had no right for our children. Our men could not protect us, nor of them. We were separated. It created tremendous havoc on the structure. And what we're seeing now in Jamaica, people say to me, oh, slavery has been done a long time. Slavery hasn't been done a long time because the same system that depressed us, the same system that colonized us, the same system that preached self-hatred in us is still in effect, which is why we have a lot of these social ills that exist, which is why people don't have land and cannot farm, and people are still without running water and electricity. That's part of that colonial legacy. That's what the Queen gave us.
The whole system of colonialism, was designed to divide and rule.
Yeah.
The fact is that a small handful of people representing the UK basically controlled 90% of the population in Jamaica who were of African descent. What happened with slavery being abolished was that these people were sent out and told, look, you are free. So we have a lot of things that we are now having in front of us that were born out of that freedom movement, where slaves were free, yes, so what they had to do, capture land. So you have a lot of places that are now regarded as slums and squatter settlements that are occupied by people historically who were given freedom, but they weren't given anything. They weren't given any money. They weren't given any land. They weren't given anything. No, we need to begin to focus on regularizing those things. We need to begin to focus a lot more attention on development of our people, education, as well as moving into these some areas and improving them. So it's a whole change in attitude and approach to governance.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
And as you mentioned the word change, Mr. Stevens, what is the process or procedure involved in becoming a republic now, going forward? What ought the nation to do or not to do?
Well, clearly one of the most important things is spreading the word and educating people about what is and what we would like to see. And I think it is something where we're asking for a timetable. We're asking for our government that says that they want to see these changes move more, rapidly, if you will, in terms of setting out an agenda and saying, look, we're going to have these programs in different parts of the island where we're going to be talking about where we're going and what we have now and what we want to have, and let us get the people involved. This is not something that needs to be decided by a handful of people sitting in Parliament. What we need is a wide cross-section of Jamaicans understanding where we're coming from and where we want to go. And that is why we say, let us set out an agenda. Let us make it something that is very intense. And we believe it can be done within the next year. In other words, by the next time that we have our 61st anniversary, we can be talking about having a situation where we are totally moved towards having a republic.
Yeah, Prof, your take on that? Your take on that?
No, I am totally, listen, Barbados has shown us that this can be done and should be done. And whereas it is true that the legalities in Jamaica is a little different in that we need a referendum, what we have to do is to really educate our people, not just about the pros and cons of a republic, but about the political agenda, about the governance structure, about what is needed, to move us forward. We have a 2030 development agenda. How close are we to that? And what is going to make us achieve those goals? And one of those goals is independence, and equity. How close are we to that? Or how far are we from where we need to reach? So education is key. But also, I stick to my point that, Jamaica is big people. And it's time we demonstrate that in terms of our legal footing, so that we are not bowing and kowtowing to the king, but that we're saying we are independent and we're going to chart our own course. And we're going to chart a course that is inclusive and that will benefit the majority of Jamaica.
Are there not concerns that even in having a referendum on it, it may be politicized? Prof?
Well, I'm sure it will be politicized. I mean, unfortunately, that's the trademark of Jamaica. We tend to make it political and divide, and things get into a longer debate. However, I do think that there is a world going to help us move things along. Movement in India, talking about their own colonialization by the British, the movement throughout the rest of the Caribbean, the movement in Africa. So I think at this point, there are enough strong energy for a republic, and we now understand, and there's more publicizing of the atrocity of the British Empire and what it has done to us, so that, yes, there will be those who want to make it political, but I think overall we're going to move for justice, and we're going to move for sovereignty, and we're going to move for self-determination. And I hope those values override any other kind of political backsliding that might, want to usurp this agenda.
Yes. Half a minute, Mr. Stevens, you have the last word. Half a minute.
Well, I think there's consensus between the political parties that we move in this direction. The question of the structure of it and the details and so on is really what we have to work out. And that requires coming together, not just the political parties, but we need to involve civil society and the general populace in the whole process to make sure that we are all on board when we move in that direction.
Well, thanks to you both for joining us as we continue to move in that direction. Have a productive and safe day, lady and gentlemen.
Thank you,
All the
and
best.
thanks for
Thank you.
making this available for the people.
You're most welcome.
All
Thank
right,
you,
bye-bye.
listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we continue to set the stage for discussion of topical and controversial issues. For information and how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Miss Kathy Gale, and our guests. I'm Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, faithful, thankful, and watchful as I hand you back to Love in the Morning with DJ.
The NHF is here for you.